Hello everybody and welcome back. It's Chris here. It's good to be with you. This is the How to Make Money Out of Excel series, how to get Excel working for you in your career. Hopefully if you're here, you love solving problems in Excel with Excel VBA. We're going to look at how to really leverage your skills to push your career forward. Welcome to everybody in the chat. Can you let me know? Can you see me and can you hear me? Let me tell you quickly what we've got planned for today. First, we're going to go through the 5 points from yesterday's video. Remember, in this series, we're doing static video, live stream, static video, live stream. We're alternating the two. So yesterday we had a static video release. We're going to go through the 5 points about how to manage a client meeting. Yes, if you want to do business with Excel, you want to get paid. If you want to do internal projects with your organization, you're going to have to be able to meet people and discuss with them how to do a project and probably do things like costing out a project. It's a critical topic. We are digging into this today. So first, I'll go over the main points quickly. With reference to, we're going to look at Thomas's video as well. And Thomas has sent in the Excel file. Remember, there's a support file with each video. Are you filling out the support file? No skiving here. Skiving is English for not going to school. No skiving here. Make sure you're filling out the Excel file. It's going to get you thinking about getting Excel working for you in your career. So we're going to go over the main points. We're going to look at some videos. Going to look at Thomas's video, and we're going to look at Tony's video questions. Thank you guys for sending in those videos. You even remembered to do it in landscape rather than portrait orientation. They look great. So we're going to deal with those video questions and do a quick consultation. And I hope in the chat you're going to join in, try to create some value for these two viewers, Thomas and Tony. Then finally, we've got one more topic, which is we had a great viewer comment come in. And I'm going to highlight that comment and we're going to discuss it again. And then finally, we have a special guest today. Oh, yes. We have somebody joining us live on the podcast. We have a communications expert who's going to bring everything together for us today. I'm looking forward to that. Make sure you hang around to the end. So that's what we got planned. I hope that sounds fun. If it doesn't, let me know in the chat and we'll try to do something fun. Talking of the chat, let's get in there and say hello. Thomas from South Africa is featuring in the session today. Welcome. David Lesimer from Trinidad, your first stream, I think. Great to have you with us and welcome. The weather's good in Trinidad, apparently. Amazing stuff. Frank from the Netherlands is with us. Welcome, Frank, a big star of the 30 for 30 series, of course. Maria is back with us. Welcome, Maria. So thank you to Maria for sending in a video 2 streams back. We looked at Maria's video. Peter is with us. Welcome, Peter, and thank you for pointing out that I got the scheduling wrong. This scheduling, it seems to be difficult, or maybe I'm just getting it wrong. Apologies for that anyway. Thanks for tuning in, Peter. And Tony is with us. Tony, we'll look at one of your videos too. DC is with us. Welcome, DC from Missouri. Good to have you. MCI NIK1 is with us. Welcome. Ben Linford is with us. How are you, Ben? Haven't seen you for a while. I know you left some nice comments on the channel a while ago, so welcome, Ben. Anup is with us as well. Welcome, Anup. DC says he's got a meeting in 24 minutes. We've got to make it exciting enough that DC is happy to miss his meeting. That's our mission today. So let's go through our 5 points. And let me tell you straight off the bat, being able to handle a first client meeting, it's nerve-wracking. I remember when I got the business started, it was nerve-wracking. Why is it nerve-wracking? Well, we'll talk later in the series about how you might manage your transition into being an Excel VBA consultant. But for me, when I was doing my first client meetings, it was really quite a big issue because for me, it was about earning money. It was about paying the rent in the next 3 or 4 months. So these meetings were big meetings for me. And really, it was new territory for me professionally as well. You know, Excel consultancy was a new thing. And you might be in a similar situation when you're going into your meetings. What I'm saying to you is just focus on a few things. We're going to talk about the 5 things now. Focus on a few things. That's going to help you feel less nervous, going to help you create value for the client. As we're going to see, it's not about you anyway. It's not about me as the consultant. We're not the heroes of this story. So point 1, It's a bit of a radical point, isn't it? In this particular period of human history, be nice. And I said in the static video, now we've got people like Donald Trump around. Doesn't seem to be a very fashionable kind of position to make, to be nice. But I'm saying you've got to be nice in the meeting. And in the video, I made the point. And this, I believe, is from somebody called Nancy Duarte. Maybe if Steve's listening, he can correct me in the chat. But you've only got to do two things to get people to like you in business. You've got to be competent. You've got to be good at something, which in our case is Excel VBA. But there's another point. You've got to be good to have around. You've got to be a nice person. And I was thinking, what word to use for this? Is nice the right word? I think nice is the best word. It's a bit vague and general, but you've got to be a good person to have around. If you're the best at VBA and not a good person to have around, you're going to have problems pushing your career forward using VBA. Equally, if you're a good person to have around, but your skills aren't quite up to it, this might be problematic too. But believe me, that's rarely the situation. But I've seen plenty of situations where very technical people, very technically adept people have struggled because they can't bring through this social and human side. So turn up to this meeting, be nice, be human. Second, we've got to remember it's not about us. As I said, we're not the heroes of this story. And we're going to talk more about storytelling later. Storytelling? What on earth are we talking about? We're talking about Excel VBA, formulae, code, whatever it might be. I'm suggesting you've got to craft a narrative around your project. Who is the hero of that story? Well, it must be us. I've set up a business. I'm doing this new thing. I've got technical ability. The hero must be me. I'm not sure about that. We're going to revisit this later, but you've got to create value for the client. You should not really be the central focus of your client meeting. It should be about you understanding the client business. And there's a list of questions that I ask clients. So, for example, what kind of organization is it? Just basic stuff. Is it a public sector or a private organization? Is it a profit-making organization? Or is it an organization that doesn't make profit, that's involved in some kind of public service? Just very basic questions. But from there, you can try to figure out the strategy, the long-term direction of the organization. How are they trying to grow? What are their products and services? What new markets are they targeting? These are all to do with long-term direction. You've got to make your project fit with the long-term direction of the organization. That means you've got to be asking lots of probing questions, if you like, to do learning about the organization. Yes, it's not about us. We've got to be learning about the clients and aligning the project with their world, with the aims of their organization. Moving down, we've got to translate to techniques. Yes, I said in the video, I used to be a Japanese to English translator, and our guest later is also a translator. That's kind of interesting. Is there a theme emerging here? But you've got to do a process of live translation. So the customer is going to be saying to you, oh, we want this file to produce a report. We want this file to produce this chart. We want this file to produce this analysis. Whatever it might be, you're going to get a list of requirements. Then the question is it even possible to do these things? Yes, you've got to be doing live translation. Is it possible? If it is possible, how much time does it take to do? Do you have the technical capability to be able to do this? Now, this comes with time. It comes with experience of doing lots and lots of meetings, but you can start now. On the channel, we always talk about conceptual understanding. So any of the technical stuff on the channel, can you explain it to a layperson? Can you explain it in real world terms? And in the spreadsheet, I put the example of a loop here. A loop is a repeated process. So you could explain that to a manager. Well, are your staff doing repeated processes? If your staff member is copying a row to 6 different sheets every day, well, there you go. Already I'm thinking we can use a loop to do that. So you can take all the stuff you know, translate it into real world value. That's going to help you express things in terms that make sense to the client. They are the heroes of this story, your client. We're not actually the heroes. A connected point, the technical stuff doesn't actually matter. If you want to talk VBA, come and hang out with me. Come and hang out in a live stream. Seriously, the customer is not really bothered about your VBA techniques. I'm sorry. I remember when I was having my first client meetings, I had just come out of my master's program. And to me, it was a big deal at the time that I'd managed to complete a master's in business analysis. And I was telling my customers about it, but they weren't really interested. Yeah, it's not really relevant to their story, all the different things that you know. So don't worry so much about the technical stuff. Come and geek out with me about the technical stuff. Geek out with the client about the real world value. So if you've managed to do those things, you've managed to be a decent person to be around, you've set up the dynamic of the meeting so it's not about you, it's about the customer. You've been able to do some live translation in your own head to get a sense of the technical requirement to deliver this project and the time requirement, the effort requirement to deliver this project. And if you put the technical stuff on the back burner, then you're in a position to actually talk about costings. And my advice is to leave costings until the end. And the position that you may be in, you've got to think, do you want to charge for projects at all to begin with? And I know that might not be good news for people, but to build up your experience, remember, if you have one project, you can then promote that project. If you can get 2 projects, you then have a niche that you can dominate, and you're rocking and rolling with your Excel VBA. So do you need to charge at all? Difficult question to deal with. Have your costing strategy kind of set out and clear in your head. Leave the costings until the end. So there's our 5 basic points. Let me know in the chat. Are there any questions about that? We're going to be exploring these more today and exploring other points in the series. Yeah, Steve's in the chat. And yeah, Nancy Duarte advocates using a story. Amy Cuddy talks about the stereotype content model, which suggests our impressions of others are first governed by warmth. So you got to be nice, and then by competence. This is fire content in the chat from Steve. Amy Cuddy, not Nancy Duarte, this was. Amy Cuddy says, doesn't matter how technically competent you are, doesn't matter what you bring to the table. If you don't communicate that warmth, convey that sense of warmth, it doesn't matter. People aren't going to engage with you. That's why you've got to be nice. Okay, so that concludes the first part of our stream today. So I hope that kind of brings out the points, gets you thinking about them. And once again, just stick a comment in the chat if you would like to chat, or if you've got a particular question about any of those points. Right, let's go to our first viewer video. Remember, in this series, I am encouraging you to take a 60-second video. Why is this a good thing? Well, it's good for the series. It's good interactive content. It means that you are the heroes of what's going on. It's oriented around your questions, but also it gets you used to creating content. And well done to Thomas. Well done to Tony today. Tony said to me, he felt a bit nervous and that he thought that he sounded very hesitant. When you start producing content, watching yourself on video, you have to deal with these things, deal with the issue of watching yourself present. But if you can deal with that, and it all gets better with time, it all gets better with repetition, and it gets better very quickly. If you can start producing content at scale on your smartphone, you are well on the way to having some kind of Excel VBA based business. Let's get into Thomas's video. And let's see if we can do a little consult for Thomas here. Okay, here we go.
Concerning the book, I was thinking of doing it as an ebook, and then maybe people could buy it, or I could also get it published. But with the publishing side, I'm not too sure whether the publishers will still take technical books in that respect, because most of the books now, they don't really go in for technical books, they more go in for novels and things like that. So I was thinking of doing a ebook, and once the book is written, I'll probably promote it in some way. And then I was thinking what you mentioned yesterday in the live streaming, find a niche. Well, I was thinking of, because I love my shortcuts, one of my fellow trainers actually called me the shortcut guru or shortcut fully, I'm not too sure. because the first thing I do in the mornings when I get into a class is I remove the undo button and the redo button from the quick access toolbar, and then the students must use the shortcuts on the keyboard to perform the different tasks. So I was thinking of maybe doing like a little podcast or something where I would give two shortcuts a day, and then every day there will be two new shortcuts. And I think with Excel having over 200 shortcuts available, it should last about 100 days, or maybe a little bit less if I do more than one shortcut on a day. For instance, to go to the next worksheet, you can use control page down, or the previous worksheet control page up. Or if you want to go to the beginning from anywhere in a worksheet, you can just use control home. And when I explain that to some people, they are quite fascinated by the idea that they don't have to scroll, use their mouse button to scroll to get to where they want to be. They can just press a shortcut key, and even to highlight different ranges just by typing the range that you want to highlight into the name box, and it will automatically highlight the range that you require. So all those are shortcuts that I think that could also be used quite easily in many instances. And if I do it on a regular basis, I'm sure that there would be people that would enjoy that.
Okay, fantastic stuff there from Thomas. So let me know in the chat, what do you think in Thomas's idea? And I've got two things for Thomas, and I sent this already to Thomas today. So thank you once again to Thomas for sending this stuff in. And what I love about Thomas's idea is, yes, you got to niche down. You got to niche down to level up. And we've spoken on the series about different ways we can niche down. We can niche down in terms of the customer demographic. Yeah. And we've mentioned there's lots of people who are retirees or coming to the end of their career who are looking for Excel advice. Something I was talking about today, Excel for teachers. Yeah, somebody in a particular sector. I've done some videos, Excel for teachers. I should do more. I should try to dominate that niche. And Thomas is talking about niching down in terms of techniques. We're saying Excel is too vast a topic for you to be able to market yourself as an Excel consultant. I've kind of managed to do that, but it's been hard work and it's taken years. You can do it a lot faster by niching down properly. So what about the shortcuts? I'm loving this shortcuts idea. And I'd even say to you, Thomas, I think you can niche down even further. So what if you said Excel shortcuts for teachers, for example? So trying to find kind of an intersect between different combinations of some of these niches. Now, those combinations have to be meaningful. You know, if I said Excel for people who wear blue t-shirts, for example, Excel for tall people, that's how tall I actually am. That's not really meaningful. But if you can find meaningful intersections between these niches, and, you know, teachers always using Excel, always trying to understand data, and they're time poor as well, so they benefit from some keyboard shortcuts. Could you combine those two niches together? So I'm saying to you, loving the idea of the shortcuts niche, and could you niche down even further? And the other idea, talking about the medium. So Thomas is here talking about a podcast. Yeah, and audio is a massive growth area. We've discussed it already in the series with Alexa, the devices in people's houses, and podcasts. You know, the advantage of podcast and audio is that you don't have to watch it. So if you're on the treadmill at the gym, you know, you're commuting to work, whatever it might be, audio is easier to consume. So I'm loving this podcast idea. The third thing is, and this is what I want Thomas to do, I've got a video on my channel called My Spreadsheet Story. You can find it on the channel, and it's the story of how I got into spreadsheets. But Thomas has sent me a few emails now. We've had a bit of a dialogue. Now, Thomas is a great storyteller. You can even see at the bottom of the spreadsheet here that Thomas sent in, he's left a bit of a story here. And Thomas, we've already discussed, has had a long and successful career. I'm just wondering, Thomas, Is there something in there about spreadsheet stories from spreadsheet trading, something like that? But there's a broader point here, which is we don't have to be delivering well-polished tutorial content. And a lot of people are missing this. You don't have to be an expert. You can carve a niche out by documenting the process of learning something. Or in this case, we're talking about communicating, some of the stories you've had. It doesn't have to be tutorial content. I do tutorial content. That's because I'm a boring teacher. Yeah. But Thomas, I can see from his videos, loves telling stories, spreadsheet stories, is there something in that? But the only way to find out after you've done some of this sensible analysis is to try and to produce content at scale. Yes, we know we have to be creating a lot of content, not just a bit of content. And I was really happy that Thomas said 100 podcasts there. Absolutely. If we're talking about a 5-minute podcast, maybe you can record them on your phone. You might be able to do 20 in a day. So if you spend a week doing that, then you've got 100 days. Yeah, I suggest you do something daily these days. The only way really to get traction in the market is to be producing content at scale and to be doing something daily. So some great shouts there from Thomas. And I hope that gives you some motivation, and if you can get it started soon, Thomas, before the end of the series, I'm very happy to, link from my videos to your videos. And that means you're going to get a little following straight away. Let's get into the chat quickly here. Peter Jones says, costing last is good. Client wants to know you can do and build value and then balance that against cost. Maybe they'll negotiate. Absolutely. 100%. You have to establish, and the client has to completely understand the value you're going to create for their business before you talk about cost. When I was thinking how these meetings might play out, I was thinking, it's going to be like a negotiation. It's funny. I've never actually, once last year, I negotiated a fee, but people, they're not too fussed about negotiating. If you can come with a few things, if you can establish the value, and if you have a body of work behind you, that's so important. But that body of work you can create for free with your online content. And those things will mean you don't have to do so much negotiation. Question from Maria. How could you convince the client he or she has to pay more when you realize the project is not so easy and it is time consuming? Great question, Maria. Very practical question here. And it's a question that I struggle with. So a few things, quite difficult to give a perfect answer to this question, but I would say first, look at the work and then think, how long does this work take? So say you look at the work, the client wants a dashboard, that's going to take about 2 days. Then you double it. Very simple. To me, it seems that'll take about 2 days. I'm gonna quote for 4 days. Yeah. That seems to work well for various reasons. One reason is you're building in contingency, but the second reason is requirements are naturally going to emerge and evolve through the project. That's because a project is a living thing. As the client sees what's possible in Excel, particularly if you're introducing VBA to them, they're going to start saying, actually, could we do this? And they might say, actually, that requirement, we don't need that anymore if we can do that. So the way my projects work is we have some aims in mind, but we don't have a very specific set of requirements. That's because things tend to evolve as you go through the project. So that's my advice here, Maria. It all comes down to the quality of the relationship with the client. If you've had a tough negotiated deal, then you probably don't have much goodwill in the bank with the client. So that's what I'm saying. But if you turn up and you're nice, the client knows that you create value for people anyway because you do free content online, that's going to create the right dynamic. And that's going to mean that if you do have problems on the project, for example, the project is too much work, you're going to be able to manage that much better because you have that goodwill in the bank. So Maria, I hope there's some insight there for you. I know it wasn't a particularly well-structured answer. Yeah, MCI, Nick One saying, I'll be interested in that, Thomas. There you go, Thomas. There's your first customer there. And Maria saying, yes, the shortcuts are something so important. And I've not seen something similar. Absolutely. The shortcuts, you can focus on them. People want them. And the content's quite easy to deliver. Thomas said there's 200, but you could start combining them together. You could create any number of videos there. So Thomas, I hope that gives you some ideas. Let me know in the chat, and let's move on to our second viewer video. So this one's from Tony, and Tony refers to Thomas in the video, but calls Thomas Charles in the video. So when Tony says Charles, he means Thomas in the video. So let's get into Tony's video. And again, let's try to do a little business consultation here from Tony, using the concepts and the ideas you've learned so far from the How to Make Money from Excel series. Right, let's go to Tony now.
Hi, Chris. Tony Hughes from sunny South Wales. Except today it's a bit cloudy after a fortnight or so of sun. Never mind. You may remember me from the Skunk Works chess series, which I enjoyed. I was interested in the video from Charles, I think it was, from South Africa, because I'm in kind of the same situation, but a bit further along the line. I've done quite a few projects in my time, for myself, for my family, for a local drama club, cricket score sheets and so on. And I've been a trainer for Excel and other office programs for many years. Now in my 70s, I'm not sure. Do I just dabble in VBA for my own amusement, or is there more that I can do? And it occurred to me when you were talking about sectors, the retired sectors, that maybe I could do something there of use, because I'm kind of in that bracket myself. And maybe I could do, say, some help others of the same age who don't have experience in Excel and VBA. So it's a thing to think about. Thank you for your streams. I have enjoyed them, and I hope for many more.
Okay, fantastic. And thank you so much, Tony, for sending in that video. So let me know in the chat, what do you think about Tony's situation? What do you think about Tony's ideas? Well, once again, I think Tony has managed to identify a niche here. Remember, we've got a niche down to level up. And I think this could be a really kind of profitable niche potentially if you're aiming at retirees. I hope that's not a disparaging thing to say. People who've retired or people who are going towards the end of their career. You've got a good niche there. You've got an age demographic. And that particular demographic, well, what appeals to me about that demographic is often they have a lot of time, and quite often they have a degree of disposable income as well. So this is potentially an interesting demographic to look at. So again, you could niche down. Could you combine it with some other niche as well? You might want to think about it. We mentioned with Thomas's example, combining some niches together, but Excel for retired people, could retired people in the UK, maybe. So incorporate a geographical niche there. I think you could niche it down even further. But what I would say to you is, again, what you've discussed in the video there, I think that should be the content of the channel. So what you're saying in the video is, I'm not sure what to do. You know, should Excel just be a bit of a hobby now? Should I be really trying to skill up with VBA? Should I be trying to find customers? That could be the content of your channel. I think so many people would be interested in that. You know, a retiree trying to set up a business again. You know, you could find some funny name for it, I'm absolutely sure. You know, trying to set up a business and document the process of trying to, you know, almost like go back to work, could you say, or trying to set up a business from that particular situation. So again, I think you got a niche. I think it's a profitable niche. So how do you move the needle on this? How do you get it going? It's with content at scale. Yes, let's go to our slide here. You've got to find a way to produce that content. And Tony, you took the first step today, and in your email to me, I hope I'm not embarrassing you by saying you thought you felt a bit hesitant. When I look at my stuff, I'm always cringing. I'm always feeling embarrassed. It's totally natural to feel a bit reticent about creating content. It gets so much better as you get the repetitions in. What's a good way to get the repetitions in? Well, do daily content. Commit to doing some kind of daily video. That's my recommendation for you. So, hope that's helpful for you, Tony. Once again, thank you so much for the video there. Let's get into the chat here. Maria, welcome, Maria. Is this your first stream? Not sure if I've seen you on the channel before, but welcome. Good to have you with us. When presenting to a client, the client may want some type of certification. What would you suggest for certification? I would say to you, Maria, the client doesn't want certification. The client wants credibility. Yeah. And believe me, I know of plenty of people who have Excel qualifications who in the real world aren't necessarily super practical and aren't really that capable of doing an Excel project. Equally, I don't have any Excel certification. Yeah, no Excel MVP or Excel accredited delivery, whatever it's called. My credibility comes from having created online content at scale, 200 YouTube videos, whatever it is, 4 million views, 30,000 subscribers, whatever it is. So I would suggest the client wants credibility. Some clients will value the certification, other clients will value other things, but you've got to find a way to establish the credibility for them. For me, the easiest way is to create that free online content. The client can look at a body of work. That means before you even got to the meeting, you've established that you're capable. Okay. Yeah. Thomas says some client wants certificate and manuals. You know what? I've never met a client who wants a certification. Got to be honest with you there. I never have, but maybe coming from my perspective of having the YouTube channel, maybe it's a bit different for me. Great point here from Ben. Ben says your niche might reveal itself to be different as you create the content. Absolutely, 100%. The only way to really work this out is to try to do it. And I'm not saying you just jump in and do it. You should do all the analysis we're talking about before you jump in. But as you create the videos, some videos are going to be more popular, some videos are going to be less popular. You're going to get comments from people, get feedback, get emails. That is gold dust. That is feedback. And that should shape the direction you go in. So you can niche down from there. Great point there from Ben. Yeah, an MCI, Nick one says, little, often, and repetitive if you want your older audience to remember it. Those three words, a little, often, and repetitive, those words apply well to creating online content in my view. Right, the third thing we're going to look at is a comment we had on the YouTube channel. So thank you to Andreas Cornelius Nianaba. Sorry for butchering your name there, my friend, but a great comment here. And what I'd say about YouTube comments is if you really want an answer out of me quickly, look at the YouTube comments. I get lots of emails, but if you write something in the comments, then that's engagement for the video. So I usually prioritize replying to these comments. But a great question here. What would a great headline for a VBA Facebook ad be? Do you need an Excel Guru Pro or do you need VBA? So let me know in the chat. So we've got to do a little consult here for Andreas. What would a good headline be for a VBA Facebook ad? And what I'd say straight away, and this is going to connect to the next conversation I have with our guest. Our guest is coming up in just a few minutes. Do you need an Excel Guru? Well, I would say if you say that, then you're already building the story around yourself. I'm not saying that's going to work. I think it might well work to say, do you need an Excel Guru? But I think it's going to be more effective to talk about the benefits of VBA, the benefits of Excel in terms of what it might do for their business. So how about, are you spending too much time with Excel? Do you need to speed up processes in Excel? Do you need to make sense of data in Excel? So rather than expressing it in terms of what you're bringing to the table, in terms of your qualifications even, express it in terms of the needs of the business. this is what I would recommend you do. And then that takes us into the niching down and the targeting conversation, you know. So if you just said, yeah, do you need to speed up Excel? That's probably too general. That's going to get lost. But if you said, are you a teacher in a primary school in the UK and you're struggling with Excel? That's an example of niching down, and that means you can create some content directly for that niche. So that would be my advice to Andreas there. There's an additional problem here, which is people don't know what they don't know. Now, what on earth does that mean? You know, people don't know about VBA. Yeah. So you might say, I'm a VBA consultant, or do you need a VBA consultant? You know, that's not going to mean anything to people who don't know about VBA. So again, you've got to express it in terms of what it's going to do for them. VBA is going to click of a button, work that might have taken 3 or 4 hours. You're going to do it at the click of a button. That's VBA. Get in touch with me, etc., etc. Yeah, good point from Ben here in the chat. Ben says Facebook is a social platform. That's important to remember. Yeah, I mean, what platform could you advertise on? You know, I think Facebook is a good platform to advertise on, but I'll go LinkedIn. I'll go LinkedIn first, because when people are on LinkedIn, they're in work mode, and LinkedIn gives us great options for targeted advertising. So for example, if I did want to target, say, primary school deputy head teachers in the Midlands, I could do that on LinkedIn. So we haven't really mentioned this, but the way advertising works these days, and there's lots of controversy about how data is collected, don't want to get into all that, but we can kind of profit from all that in this situation. If you can create a targeted message, niche it down, express it in terms of value for a particular niche, you can create a targeted advertisement to hit that niche. Never before in the history of advertising have people had these options. Welcome to Jasfin. And Jasfin says, yeah, VBA. I think you're talking about VBA, Jasfin. I didn't know what it could do. When I saw it, it was a light bulb that went off. Yes, with VBA, we've had the 30 for 30 course recently. I've had lots of nice emails from people saying, I can't believe what it does. It's not just an efficiency improvement, it's a game changer for people. I've dedicated my career to trying to explain that. I still haven't found a really catchy way to explain that. Right, okay, we're going to get on to our special guest. So just bear with me a second here. So we're going to get our special guest on the phone now. Now, let me know in the chat, who do you think this special guest is? Okay, this is live television, guys. So let's get into WhatsApp here. And let's give the great man a call. Okay, here we go. Okay, Andrea said, I missed the start. Hi, Steve, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thanks very much for inviting me on your lovely live stream. It's great to be here.
That's a pleasure, Steve. And I thought you'll be the man to speak to today, because we're talking about interacting with clients and, in particular, creating the right story around a project. So could you kind of dig into that idea a bit and just introduce it for our viewers and try to create a bit of value there?
I think that when you meet a client, there's two journeys which are coming together. Often you are at the end of a journey as a developer. So you've been developing your skills and your abilities, and you've got to a stage where you feel you can offer value to somebody. And that's been a long journey, let's face it. It's not easy to develop these abilities. And when you're at the end of a journey, it's kind of natural to feel like you've benefited so much from that journey that you want to tell people about it. Have that knowledge that you've gained over the journey flow and have that be transferred to the person you're talking to, probably the client you're pitching an idea to, perhaps. But although it's the end of your journey, it's very much, of course, the start of their journey. And we get into a very problematic situation where somebody on the start of their journey is being presented with the conclusion of somebody else's journey, although it's a very sort of understandable thing. So if we can discipline ourselves to approach client meetings with a sense of presenting the opportunity of a journey for the client, presenting them with a choice, leave things as they are, or choose to adopt a new tool, a new way of thinking, a new approach to whatever the processes you want to help them with, and you put that choice at the center of your pitch. So you don't talk about the journey that you've been on, you talk about the journey they could go on if they elect to go with your idea or your approach. Straight away, you're massively empowering them because they feel active, like they have the power to choose. And you are just, it's not you coming and doing the work, it's you presenting a new, more interesting, more successful reality that they can choose to get into if they choose to. But of course, because that your ideas, the value, the content that you can deliver is the end of your journey, it's a kind of counterintuitive thing to do. And you may well land there and start talking to a client, and after 10 minutes, they're looking slightly glazed and maybe a little bit bored, and you're thinking, why are they bored? I've just told them all this great stuff that's so useful for them. But of course, you're telling them stuff that you found out, but you're not presenting it as something that they should surge forward and try out. It's an understandable kind of misstep. It's completely human because we are all heroes, as you said, of our journey. But we need to discipline ourselves to really see it from their perspective, essentially, put them at the center of the story.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, that totally resonates with me because we work so hard on our skills. We've just had 30 for 30, people working so hard. So you want to kind of display, don't you? Display the fruits of your labor. So, but we have to get into a different mindset. So have you got any practical tips, Steve? So okay, I want to present this kind of idea of a journey to the client, but obviously I can't turn up at the meeting and say, we're going to go on a journey. That's a bit too cliched, isn't it? So in a practical sense, how can we set up the conversation?
Well, in your mind, you have to define two states: the current situation with your client and the situation how you know it could be if they were to choose you as a developer to work with them. And you have to have those two states clear in your mind. And you need to start by identifying the need and talking about the status quo, how things are right now. So you don't start by talking about how amazing it could be. No, that's the first mistake. You talk about how things are right now.
Okay.
Then, when you've established a degree of credibility by showing you understand the client's situation, you then get the chance to maybe propose what you might call a new future, a new way of doing things. That makes it sound all epic and grand. It doesn't have to be like that at all. But you are crucially positioning your idea in relation to their reality. You're not just bringing it in and smashing them with it. You're showing where it exists in relation to how they work, how they live, whatever, at the moment. So you're not talking about your spreadsheet, your service, your approach. You're talking about your client's life with that approach in it. There's a very important difference there. And that already creates a choice for them. Without saying, we're going to take you on a journey. You haven't said anything explicit like that, but you have shown that you understand how things are, but you also understand how things could be, and they are now faced with a kind of pleasant dilemma. Do we keep listening and go on this journey, or do we ignore this guy? Now, the next stage is you have to acknowledge the fact there's going to be a degree of skepticism from the client at this stage. This is entirely natural because we humans are creatures of habit, and there's a natural urge to be a little bit skeptical of somebody proposing solutions, even if they are well thought out. There's always going to be an element of that. And that's, I think, fine, because then you can talk about that skepticism, and you can actually sort of move back. You define these two states. You can move back and you can talk about this situation as it is and why there are advantages to it being as it is. You can show you understand that that's how it developed. And so by moving them back and forth between those two kind of conceptual states, subtly, you are creating a choice, and you're effectively creating a journey without ever explicitly saying so.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me, and I think people tend to be strong talking about the second state, talking about how things might be, this idealized view, if you like. But a stage a lot of people miss out is that first stage, establishing exactly what the problems are. And I found in my work that, I might get an email saying we've got this problem with Excel, but often people, managers, it's difficult, isn't it, to actually diagnose problems yourself. So to what extent do we just accept the version of events that our prospective client gives us? And to what extent do we have to kind of question that and dig into it? And if so, are there tools available to help us do that, to help us understand what's actually going on now?
It's an interesting question. I mean, there's two different conversations here. There's the conversations you're having when you have met the client and you've talked to them and you understand their needs and you're kind of pitching your solution. That's really what I'm talking about now. What you're talking about is more the exploratory discussions when you're trying to tease out what the real problems are. Maybe it's a difficult thing because on the one hand you're trying to figure out what the problems are, and you're also trying to signal to the customers, to the clients, where the solutions might be or where the power of the tools might be in VBA, for example. But you don't want to then get all technical with the client. You want to just sort of suggest what could happen. So it's really, I think that conversation is a very delicate dance between always listening to your customer, but being ready at key moments to jump in and propose potential ideas which might unlock a new way of understanding as the client talks about their process. But that is the kind of thing that I don't think you can create definite rules for. That's really nuanced, and I think it probably connects at the deepest level to the other thing you were talking about the need to be nice, basically, and what I commented on the live stream about the need to establish a conduit of warmth before you try and dazzle anybody with your competence, which is a whole other topic, but also very important. And I'll just say one thing on it. Obviously, everyone that watches your videos and is in this live stream are very nice people because they're interested in improving their skills and creating positive change in the world around them. So they're nice people. The thing is, no matter how nice you are, when you get yourself in high stakes situations, job interviews, big presentations, essential client pitches, first meeting, then that has an effect on your behavior. And the higher the stakes, the greater the effect and the more difficult it is to predict how you're going to react to that situation. And we do see a lot of people find the pressure shifts them towards thinking, man, I need to appear competent. I need to appear like I'm across the detail. I know my stuff, and that needs to be the primary thing. That needs to be established, and then I'll worry about being nice. And again, it sounds completely natural, sounds totally intuitive, but it is a dangerous game to play because researchers, Amy Cuddy is the person who talks about this most. You can look it up or give it a quick Google, loads of stuff online about it. Warmth is the primary conduit of human communication, and through warmth we then get chances to demonstrate competence. Warmth is the intention that somebody seems to have towards you, not so much a warm and cuddly. It's just a semantic question, but it means like when you meet somebody, what is their intention towards you? Do they mean you well or do they mean you ill? And then their competence is their ability to deliver on that intention. And if we forget that it goes in that order, warmth, then competence, then you risk actually making a much colder, a much less welcoming impression on somebody than you really feel. And that would be a terrible mistake to make, given that is not normally how we are, but the high stakes, the pressure of the situation has maybe pushed our behavior into a slightly different area. So we have to practice and get relaxed and figure out and reflect on how we deal with our clients from that perspective. And that will help you have that difficult conversation, bringing it back. That'll help you have that difficult conversation when you're trying to diagnose exactly where the problems are.
Okay, yeah. So you're saying, this totally resonates with me because, I do think generally I'm a friendly person, but when I get nervous, when the stakes are high, I find that it's difficult to get that across. I'm a bit kind of hesitant and a bit kind of, a bit insular, a bit kind of inward looking. I don't think naturally I'm like that. What I would say at this point is in management science and in Members Monday, by the way, we always talk about this kind of stuff. But in management science, people have said that deploying some visual aids to help you understand situations as they are now can be incredibly powerful. So this is just in the exploratory stages, really taking the time to understand properly and deploying some tools there. Now, the tool I recommend is called Rich Picturing, and we have a video on rich picturing on the channel. So if you're coming up to a client meeting, I would recommend doing a rich picture for your client situation. And a rich picture encourages to look at a situation holistically in a rich way. We look at an organization, the industry dynamics, the environment, long-term issues, and to see things from a customer perspective. So that may also help, when you're trying to navigate your way through these emotions and the trickiness of the meeting. Have your preparation done and apply some tools to help you think it through. And rich picturing is one of those tools.
It's a real double whammy because you are putting your client's position at the center of your thinking, and you are also demonstrating your ability to map out a complex system and make it more understandable. So you feel engaged and warm because you're centering it around their experience, and you feel competent because you're reducing complexity and increasing transparency. So yeah, that's a good start to a client meeting if you can do that, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And I've felt this shift in the tone of the conversation when you shift from sense making to solution suggesting. So the first part of the meeting, you're trying to understand what's going on. Maybe what they've said in the email is completely different to what they're saying on the day. I say keep it in that sense making phase as long as you can, because once you go into solutions and this is what could happen, it's quite difficult to bring it back. Yeah, it's quite difficult to move between those two tracks. So I would say be comfortable just talking about how things are. I think there's so much value for a client in just talking about how things are, and resist the temptation to move on into that solution space too early, because once you do, it's quite difficult to get back.
Yeah, I could well imagine that is the case. And I mean, the more time you spend diagnosing problems, it's almost like the more. I mean, you can't do it for too long. Obviously, you need to start delivering. But it's I always think there's room for more. Like you said, mainly because the clients will realize there are additional issues, and often what they thought was a specific problem with a specific spreadsheet from a specific process is actually the tip of the iceberg. It's actually indicative of a deeper problem. And then it's left to the Excel developer to sensitively just delve in and figure out what that is. But then you're just delivering exponential value, and that's the kind of thing that will get you called back to do more work, because you have some magic ability not only to solve their problem but find out other problems to solve those too, which has to be a good thing, right?
Well, hopefully, yeah. And there's a question of scope here, because if we're having this really productive exploratory conversation, there's a temptation to take an easy payday. Let's put it that way. I've been in this situation many times. Customer phones up, they want this project. It's a project I've done before. I'm able to deliver that work in quite a routine way and probably get paid for it. But I know deep down there's more fundamental issues. So this is a dilemma you're going to have to deal with. Do you take the easy payday, or do you play the long game and say, listen, this probably isn't the best project. We really need to dig into and discuss this area. Therefore, you're sacrificing your chance of having that nicely structured project that you can do easily, but you're entering into a more profound and long-term relationship with the customer. So I still struggle with that dilemma today. And today I was having a conversation with a customer about, that's a scope question. Where do you draw the boundary around the project?
It's really important for all of us to figure out how valuable our time is, and what is the potential value of deferred gratification. So you're putting off something now for a bigger treat later, and I think it has to be a dynamic calculation based on where you are in your career and what you have to offer and what your availability is. We have to maintain flexibility. There might be a global pandemic or something like we have now, and everything changes. But I think if in doubt, err towards the long-term view. If you can manage it, don't take the quick payday, but go for the longer project. Because I mean, the learning that you get from that, it can also be transformative in many other ways. So I think sort of pushing things farther, going deeper is often, if you can make it work that way, a good idea. Whilst, of course, being aware of your own work-life balance, your own well-being, and the value of your own time.
Absolutely. And I would say at this point, when we're thinking about projects, I've just put the content slide on the screen. We're thinking about projects. If you've got a multi-dimensional business and you've got multiple income streams, so you're not just doing projects, you're also doing, let me just try to get back to the camera here. You're also doing content, and maybe you've managed to monetize some of that content. That takes a lot of the pressure off the projects, guys. So these days when I'm structuring projects with people, I'm not afraid to get into those fundamental issues because I've got a diversified business in terms of the income streams, at least to some extent. It's not the case that this project is the be all and end all. And that's why I'm saying, guys, creating online content at scale has so many benefits. Steve, thanks for being with us. Yeah. Any final, what can you leave the viewers with today? So if you're approaching your first client meeting, you're feeling a bit nervous, what should you have front of mind to calm your nerves and help you get a good outcome out of the meeting?
You need to have front and center that that you're not the hero, as you said earlier. You need to take the pressure off yourself. If you watch movies or you read books, then you'll be familiar with so many stories in like the human experience that take a likable, normal hero and thrust them into an unusual, unexpected situation in which they have to deal with. If you think Lord of the Rings or The Matrix or Star Wars or Back to the Future, all of these stories have the same basic premise. It's very tempting as an Excel developer, a programmer, on your own journey into making money out of Excel, that you are Luke Skywalker or Frodo or Neo. But you actually can take the pressure off yourself when you realize that actually it's the client who is that character. They are the ones that are about to be confronted with a new reality, and the new reality is what you have to offer them. And it's actually quite a pleasant reality, but they're not sure about it, and also they're not sure whether they can really, take the ring to Mordor or defeat Darth Vader or whatever. But you can position yourself not as Luke Skywalker, but as Yoda, not as Frodo, but as Gandalf. You can be the person that has the knowledge, but you cannot complete the quest. Only the client can do that. So you're there to help, but they are in the unique position to improve their world. And that actually takes the pressure off you a little bit. And it puts you in a comfortable zone where you're there to offer expertise, to offer help, to offer support, but you cannot convince them, right? They have to choose to go with you. So when you relieve yourself of this idea, that then you'll stop this kind of desperately trying to convince them and say more and give them more reasons, give them more advantages. Just say, look, this is the situation. I've showed I understand it. This would be a solution, and if you guys want, then we can do it. But you guys need to know that it's your choice. And I think things can get a bit more relaxed when it actually is like a pressure relief valve when you take yourself out of the driving seat a little bit. Maybe that might help some people in their next meetings.
100%. So as Excel developers, we're actually guides in other people's stories. So if we can view ourselves like that, not only is it going to create better meetings, it's going to make us feel less nervous about taking on those meetings.
I would say so, yeah. Yeah, that's the idea.
Fantastic. Right. Well, leave it there then, Steve. But thanks for joining us. And I know I've got some insights out of that, and I hope our viewers have as well. So see you soon, Steve.
Thanks very much, guys. Take care. See you soon.
Take care. Bye. Okay, so there we go. So there we go, guys. The hero's journey. Did you think we were going to go that deep? I didn't think we were going to go that deep, but this is such an empowering idea. It's not about us. All we can do is present a choice. We present that choice by examining deeply what's going on at the moment, taking additional time to make sure we understand that, and then presenting the alternative, not in a technical language, but in a language that's going to make sense to the customer. Position ourselves as the guide. There's your choice. I love this idea. I employ it in my meetings all the time, really takes the pressure out of the situation. And I think the client loves it because the client knows you're trying to create value for them. You're not trying to position yourself at the center of this situation. So thank you so much for listening to that, guys. And I'll deal with some questions in the chat now. So Jasmine with a great kind of practical questions here. What if I'm a client that worries you'll communicate some of my trade secrets approaches? And how does the trust issue handle that? So yeah, I've dealt with this situation a few times. How it usually works in my projects is it literally works on trust. That's usually how it works. On a number of projects, I have signed non-disclosure agreements, however. So that could be a way to approach it. And for me, it's the client's responsibility to sort that out. But clearly, this is where being nice matters. You've got to maintain high levels of integrity, organization, organization with your data, and all of the sensible things that you should be doing to make sure that your equipment is safe and therefore the client's data is safe. But I've never found that's a deal breaker. And if a client is nervous about that, they can introduce a non-disclosure agreement, an NDA, a contract that you sign saying that you're going to be careful with your data. Touch wood, it's never been a problem on my project so far. Yeah, Thomas with a great idea here. So when we're scoping out a project, a good idea is to get a watered down spreadsheet without sensitive data. I always ask clients for this before I think about engaging in any work. Can you send me the file? And the client might say, I can't send you the file because it has sensitive data in it. It's often in education, student information, for example. That's fine, but can you get a watered down version of the file? So can they anonymize the data, delete the data, or maybe create a kind of mocked up version of the file in another file? That means that you can get your head around what's going on. So ask for a watered down version of the file. Right, I think that's everything, guys. So thanks so much for tuning in. So what have we been talking about? We've been talking about how to handle a client meeting. We've got our 5 practical tips here for handling a client meeting, and we dug deep. We went deep today, guys. We went deep into the hero's journey. That's a simple idea that's going to make you feel confident and empowered in client meetings. It's going to help you push your career forward using Excel VBA. I'll see you tomorrow for our next static video release. Take care, guys.